everyone. This is Marilynn Hughes, live with the Out of Body Travel Foundation. Just a reminder to please subscribe to our channel. Subscriptions help to make us more searchable on YouTube and around the internet, helps people to find us and our work. And also, please consider becoming a member. You can do that by clicking on the join button in your upper right-hand corner. Those memberships really help us with keeping our resources free to everyone in the world, no matter who or where they are. And we so appreciate that. And so please consider those things. We very much appreciate our members. Thank you for being members. Let's say hello to Anna Yell and John. Thank you for joining us in our live stream. I have quite a bit of questions this month, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with some of these. So I got this one. So I'll start with this one. This one, actually, I think I'm going to switch it up because the person that sent me this is not in the room yet. And I specifically invited this person. I'm going to wait. So I will start here with another one here. So this is from another one of our members. It says, I saw this post in a group. Welcome, Adriana. It's great to have you. Thank you for joining us. And wanted to share it with you as I was thinking about it in a roundabout way last week. I've been drawn to Hazur Baba Sawan Sinj Ji Maharaj from the first time I ever saw him, and feel there is a strong sense I was initiated by him. What he says about Jesus and going higher than him is what always keeps me questioning the paths I'm on and being on the right one, if that makes sense. Great to see all of you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I can see parallels between the Sant Mat Paramam saints and the lineage of saints and masters with what Jesus describes in portions of the Pistis Sophia. Yes, one of the texts that I particularly enjoy, of course. Good morning, everyone, says Adriana. Good morning to everyone as well. Thank you, Adriana. Beautiful rose and flowers. I sometimes believe that perhaps I was placed back into the body where I would be able to best receive the mysteries again in this lifetime, not only from you, but from my friend who is an initiate of Sant Mat, and others who earlier in my life were and are masters and initiates of the mystery schools and traditions. From my earliest memories of church and the Bible, it's all I ever wanted to know. The mysteries of the Bible that are in Scripture. I wanted to be taught, but the pastors never really did that very well. I couldn't understand why they never did that. My entire life has been that of a servant and a seeker of truth. I wanted to share a posting with you that I found somewhere. I'm assuming this person must have found it possibly online somewhere, as I resonated with it. Thank you and much love always. And so this is apparently a quote from Hazur Baba Sawan Sinj Ji from Letters to Westerners. And I'd just like to point out what a coincidence, or as I like to say, coinky dink, because not last night, but the night before last, I had the extreme honor of being with Kirpal Singh, which is Hazur Baba Sawan Singh's grandson. So I know you know who I'm talking about. So here is the quote that this member shared. You should not be sorry for being alone. We are born alone and leave this world alone. None go with us. Even this body has to be left behind. It is the master and the sound current that keep us company after death. The internal spiritual journey is very sweet and interesting. And so also the study of books relating to the path. When you go up high enough, you will see much finer and more interesting scenes. What you have said about seeing the radiant form of Master Jesus is quite true. You will meet him again when you go in, but you are to go much higher up and beyond him. You should die daily as you died on the day you saw the vision of Christ. You should devote much time to your spiritual practice so that you may see those things daily. Those visions and scenes are still within you, and when you go within, you will see them. Please keep your mind and attention present during meditation and work hard. Hope everyone is listening really clearly to this one, because I'm going to go back to this. And you're going to see how this sharing relates to this experience shared by another member of our group, and how beautiful God's mysterious ways flow between us on earth and in the way our lives mingle here, even in this little out-of-body travel foundation. But I did want to share with all of you and the person who wrote this. I had a beautiful experience 2 nights ago. I was taken to see many of my ancestors. I won't share the whole thing because I'll be writing about it in the book I'm working on. But I met many of my ancestors from the Orthodox path. But I met this whole group of ancestors, and I'm not sure, honestly, if these are ancestors from my DNA line, from my physical line, or if these are ancestors that would be in different past lifelines, just because I'm pretty white, to be bluntly honest here. And I actually recently participated in a DNA study with the Mayo Clinic because they're doing medical research. And so I have a pretty good DNA profile. So I don't know if it's related to my DNA background or to my spiritual background, but I met this entire line of Islamic Muslim Sufis. And I met amongst them, these were not relatives of mine, but they were with Guru Nanak, who is the founder of the Sikh lineage, and Kirpal Singh was there. And they were all praying together. And it was so beautiful. These relatives, ancestors, had created like a church, a temple within their heavenly home where they all gathered to pray. And these, in the Sufi family, there were probably 80 members that were living together. In the Orthodox family, there were maybe 30. So it was this huge extended family. And they came, and their purpose was to share some interesting stuff I needed to understand about my family history, some things that were important for me to know. But it was also to show me some other things that were kind of hidden deep within my soul's past or my ancestral past. And they were so excited because I came in to their worship hall, which was this round, beautiful, like a coliseum type, but it was totally enclosed because it was within their home. It had these, benches that they all prayed upon, and they were all in prayer on their knees. And in the center was Guru Nanak and Kirpal Singh. And I went up front, and they were so surprised that I knew who they were, because they knew that I was Catholic. And they were very excited that I knew so much about the Sufi way, the Sufi path, and that, who Guru Nanak was, and Kirpal Singh, the Sant Mat path, the Sikh path, and that I had such respect for their path and what they did. And it was so very holy, this whole family, and realizing these were all my relatives, they were very dark skinned. The Orthodox family as well, very dark skinned, very Turkish looking. And so this is why I'm like, well, I don't know if it's my DNA. I know that in the DNA studies they did on me in the Mayo Clinic, I had quite a bit of mostly Germanic, which is from my mother's side because she was from Germany, but also from my father's side, England and Irish descent. There was a small amount of Middle Eastern and Ashkenazi Jew. So maybe I'm seeing this little remote portion of my ancestry. Adriana says, "Oh, wow, Marilynn, how beautiful experience you had. What amazing and wondrous, inspiring and delightful to know. Thank you for sharing." Thank you, Adriana. I'm glad you enjoyed hearing it. Interesting, the timing too, huh? To share. It was so astounding, and there's more to it, but that'll be to come, right? And I write it all down in its full import in the book I'm working on. But so here we go. I wanted to share this question and actually an experience from someone else, which ironically, when you hear what Hazur Baba Swan Singh was saying here about the Master Jesus, and then we transition now to this beautiful experience. Anna Yell says, would love to hear more. All right, well, maybe we'll go back to that. But I do want to try to get to some questions here because I had quite a few sent to me this month. John says, can you share with us a brief explanation of the Sant Mat Masters? Who are they? What do they believe? Certainly, we can do a little bit of that. They really are an extension of the Sikh line, and the Sikhs are a combination of the Islamic and the Hindu religion. And part of the reason for that is because the Sikhs originated in northern India. So it's kind of like the border between the Muslim countries and the Hindu countries. And so this unique conglomeration formed between Islam and Hinduism. But it started with Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak was the founder of that lineage, and the scripture of the Sikhs is the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. There are 4 volumes. I have 2 of those volumes. They're very thick. They're like this thick. And these are the writings that date back to the time of Guru Nanak, who was like a meditation master. So ironically, in the Sikh teachings, there's a huge amount of meditation. It's actually ironically, it's a conglomeration of Islam and Hinduism, but there's a lot of Zen in it. There's a ton. It's a very meditative practice. Let me get what you're all saying here, please. Adriana says, yes, I would love to hear more of your ancestors' experience. AD, welcome, AD. The only time I've had out-of-body travel is smoking DMT. Well, and some other people have had that as well. So that's not uncommon, but if you are interested in learning to have the experience without smoking DMT, you can. It takes effort and time, and there's no guarantees, but we do have all the resources available to you freely here. So you can start with our film here on how to have an out-of-body experience and go to the website at outofbodytravel.org and start with downloading Come to Wisdom's Door and the Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And once you get started there, you might want to follow up with the Hammer of Mysticism. But we have over 104 books available, and they're all available for free download. And on the YouTube channel, tons and tons of materials that you can utilize that will give you a lot of guidance and direction. A lot of people have learned how to have the experiences. Many of them are here today, and many of them started out having no experiences at all. So Sant Mat, Sant Mat is more of a little bit of a modernization of the Sikh path, and it's called the Path of Light and Sound. And the reason it's called that is because the Sant Mat Masters are really focused on the phenomenon, the experience of the mystic, in that the mystic, if you go into the mystical state, you will follow the current of life itself. And that is the path of light and sound as it moves through the universal vibration. And so that's why they call it the path of light and sound, the sound current, the light stream. And so when you read the writings, and I have quite a bit of the writings of Hazur Maharaj Bawa, let me make sure I get his name right. It's kind of a long name. But Hazur Baba Sawan Sinj. He focuses a lot on this meditation on the sound current, and then the path of light and sound. Ironically, it was Hazur Baba Sawan Sinj who came to me years ago. It must have been like 2005, 2010, and instructed me to write the book At the Feet of the Masters, which then subsequently we actually put together a two-part film on called At the Feet of the Masters, which you can also watch here at the YouTube channel for free. So that was at his urging, and I was actually flowing through the sound current and the path of the light stream and having a beautiful ecstatic experience when he came to me and told me I needed to put that book together. And so it was a kind of a nice little thing to now see his grandson, Kirpal Sinj, because they have a lineage that has gone from grandfather to grandson sort of thing. And AD says, I'd love to find out more and will look into your fabulous work. Thanks. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. If you have questions, email me, Marilynn Hughes at outofbodytravel.org. It's on the website. I'll answer your questions, no problems. So when you get done with those books, I'll recommend more. So you're good to go. Interestingly, too, in the experience, they had given me a book, and it was a Sufi book. It was called The Transcendent. And so I'm actually kind of busily, scarfling through all my Sufi books, trying to find something that might in any way resemble the book that they gave me. But it was kind of like, it was like this thick, and it was red. And it was like a pocket paperback, and it contained within it all of the important teachings of the Sufis. It was just, they were all wearing white, robes, like the desert Bedouins might wear, that kind of a white robe. And they had the turbans, the white turbans. Um, and they had really, really dark hair, but their hair was, straight and not matted or anything. They were more like Arabs, Turks, not like Africans. Um, and it was just, there were so many of them. There were a lot of them there, like 80, so uh, so this huge family, and they were my extended family. It was so cool. It was just really cool. And I'm sure that wherever that bloodline is, that yes, it's definitely expanded outward. And I have lots of relatives from that, that little drop of blood there, from that little tiny part of my DNA line. So it's fascinating to realize, but I do think that I need to, do some investigating, not necessarily into my family history, but I think what it's instructing me is to look more into, ironically, the Sufi path, the Sikh path, the Sant Mat path, and the Orthodox Christianity, which is what I've been pulling books off the shelf to do that, to do some more research, because that's what I do. Looks like we have a super chat. Thank you so much, John. $10 in super chat. Thank you very much. He says, thank you for that explanation. I so appreciate super chats. That really helps us out. Of course, every member and every super chat, you're helping us to keep our resources free all around the world and making it possible. Like for AD here, he's going to be able to access our resources so that he can learn about out-of-body travel and see if he can learn how to do it as well. Thank you so much, John, for giving us that fantastic super chat. That's so fabulous. And so I'd like to go on here now. And so we want to remember what Hazur Baba Swan Sinj was saying about the Master Jesus. And let me just point out a few of the points that I think were important. What you have said about seeing the radiant form of Master Jesus. You will go much higher up and beyond him. You should die daily as you die on the day you saw the vision of Christ. Please keep your mind and attention present during meditation. Those visions and scenes are still within you. And when you go within, you will see them. And that is so true. The visions that I've seen, they never leave me. They don't just fade away. They are always there. They are always there. Adriana says, what a fascinating big soul family, Marilynn. Thank you. Thank you. And, I think we all have them, so that's what makes it even more interesting. So let's go into this interesting sharing from one of our members that I wanted to share. So, I felt, let me back up just a little bit. Hello, Marilynn. I was so sad when I got out of the shower and saw that I had just missed your live Q&A. I did not write yet because, in essence, it is not much I can say in words about what happened. It was more the feeling I experienced. I hope you know what I mean, and I'm not totally crazy here. And of course, I know exactly what you mean, because that is the energy of it, what we embody, what it brings to us in energy, that emotion, that feeling. Some of the times when we have these experiences, we are overcome, and there is no other explanation for it. There is nothing tangible to it. It is an energy that embodies us. Well, I felt the vibrations and fell asleep. Then the remembrance is more of a dream. I remember being next to Jesus somewhere there in the heavenly realm, I assume, and we were talking side by side. Then Jesus showed me a part of his life, and I watched it as it is in front of me. I remember saying, wow, thank you for showing me this part of your life. I didn't know that that was the way or how it had happened in his life, but I don't remember the specific part. I just remember that he showed me a part of his life, and I sense it was for my learning, and I remember thanking him for it, but I can't remember what it was. Then we talked, but I can't remember the conversation. I remember just that we talked. And I don't remember his face. I just remember being side by side. My husband woke me, and it was time for me to go to work. At that moment, I came back from my dream, and I opened my eyes, and I could not remember anything of earth, just that I was talking to Jesus. It took me a few seconds for the memory to hit me that I was me, and I have a job, and I have to get up and get ready to go to work and take my kids to school. The warm, loving feeling when I woke up was so soothing and sweet, but since I could not remember any concrete details of the experience, I figured to wait for your live and just write my question on it. So my question is this: why can't we remember? Why are we not allowed to remember what goes on at night when we are out of our bodies? So let's start there. There's a little more, but we'll start there. So what happens is we're allowed to remember what we can handle at the time. And there is a little bit of mystery to this question, even for me, because after all these years, I get so frustrated when there are still things that I'm not allowed to remember, because we want to know. And there are times we have things and we know there was more. And it's just so frustrating when that happens. But one of the things I have definitely discovered is we will know when it is the right time for us to know. A lot of times, too, it is that we start culminating what happens at night in bits and pieces. And part of the reason for that is because there is so much that goes on at night that we literally would be so overwhelmed that we couldn't function in our daily physical lives if we were trying to process all of the activity that occurs during the night. And so we are given to remember those things that are most helpful for us to process from the unconscious to the conscious mind at a given moment. And as we continue to progress, we may start to remember more and more. And then we go through periods where it stops again and we start remembering less for a while. And that's because the spirit realm pulls back, because again, we go through a period where we have to cultivate, we have to process this information. We can't be overwhelmed. Otherwise, we would literally probably lose our minds a little bit, and that's very frustrating for us, because we are it's so hard for us to think that we can't handle that information, but we do have to kind of trust God with it, that it would be too much for us, or that we would not be able to process it fully. So like, let's say, for instance, in this particular experience that you had, it sounds like the important information that you were allowed to remember was two things. One was the incredible love that you felt and the emotions that you felt. That was important. The second thing was You were allowed to remember that there were things about Jesus's life that may have been different than we know. And yet, remembering what that was may have been something that may have kind of thrown you off maybe a little too much. So maybe just knowing that, okay, our histories are not completely accurate. Maybe that's all you needed to know for right now. And knowing more might have just kind of rattled your world a little too much. You see, and that can happen to any of us, because if we are living in a certain way or our belief system is a certain way, we have to process through realizing that it may need to be examined and maybe changed a little in pieces, in small parts, so that we don't, rock our foundation. And so Adriana says, yes, everything you said is happening right now to me. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that that rings true to you. Okay. And so when these things happen, trust that your guardian angels and the Lord know that there's a certain amount you can take in consciously. And so, but there's a lot more going on where you're being cultivated subconsciously. And that will come to pass in its own time. It frustrates all of us. It frustrates us even 30, 40 years into the path. So it's always frustrating. We always want to remember everything. But I do and can tell you, even now in my path, one of the things I've seen is, because I can have things and I can remember, oh my gosh, I had 20 or 30 things last night, and I cannot, and I'm allowed to remember that I had 20 or 30 things, but I can't remember what all of them were, because if I did, I'd be so confused. And so they have me remember the details to the ones that are important for me to write about. So they help me to focus. And that, so even for 30, 40 years in, there's that selective memory going on. Adriana says, very frustrating not to remember. Everybody feels that way, every single person, and we all experience it, every single one. And let's continue here. I also had another experience. I don't remember the date. All I remember is this: I woke up and felt the vibration, and then I heard the voices, people's voices, thoughts. And we talk about this in Come to Wisdom's Door, and about how when you detach and start hearing the thoughts of humanity, because that's what happens when you detach into the spiritual body. And then I relaxed and I fell asleep. Shortly after, I remember standing out there in the universe and waiting for something like a gate or portal or some sort of passage to open. And I remember seeing it moving and opening, and it was colorful with stars in the back. And I remember going in it, and then I don't remember anything else. Zip, nada. Same problem, different day, right? Last but not least, Marilynn, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciated your live on St. Hildegard von Bingen. Her life story was so sublime. Thank you for sharing the litany of humility. I never read this prayer in my life, and I never heard of St. Hildegard. And it means a lot to me to have learned her story and this most beautiful prayer that touched my heart deeply. I pray it every day now. It is indeed wonderful. I'm so glad that those were helpful to you. I'm glad those were helpful to you. And what's really great, and I want you to focus on, is that you were standing in the galactic heavens and you saw the vestiges of that portal. Even though you weren't able to remember what happened when you zipped through it, you were able to see it and be there. which a lot of people would be jealous of, that you were able to do that much and remember that much. And so hold on to that part, and so you probably did something really, really cool, but you're not you're not there yet where it's okay for you to remember where you went. And, when you pop through that portal, you could have been, going into a sphere that was pretty intense. So, don't worry about that. Just, it's okay. So, and then love to you and love right back at you. So there we have it. So now we have a several part question that was sent to me. So let's move on to this one. This one is from another member. So this is kind of several parts. So we're just going to zip through these parts and see how it goes. Okay. Now, this is one of our members who had a near-death experience. Marilynn, I think I've seen people eating in the afterlife from my near-death experience. There is a realm where people grow actual produce that we can't see physically, but they grow, harvest, and cook. There are more fruits and produce in the spirit world than there are here. I am wondering what your experience is relative to this. I also have seen that, and you definitely see this not only in terms of gardens and lush produce, you see it on the banquet tables of the Lamb, that the food in the spirit world is extremely abundant and extremely fruitful. I know that shamanic experience as well as shamanic medicine definitely exist. Okay, that, so there's no further explanation as to that thing. And yes, definitely they do exist. Shamanic experiences are spiritual experiences, and shamanic medicine is basically medicine that comes from some type of spiritual insight, and sometimes given herbs. Now, if you're talking about like witch doctoring, it's a whole nother subject, which we'll deal with another time, because that can involve dark forces. We don't want to go there. So that would be let's not go there. But okay. And then there's some people seem to be from the future and have already resurrected because they are coming from the future. So that's very interesting. And it's an experience that this person had in their near-death experience. And so very interesting. That's not something I have seen. That's very cool. I haven't gotten a chance to read all of your books yet, but I've read some. And so we're just going to zip through some of the addendums to these thoughts. Okay, I've actually seen and confirmed that spiritual produce exists. Not spiritual food like the Bible and holy books, but actual plants and fruit trees in wide variety. Yes, that does absolutely exist. And he says, it also leads me to believe that there is a specific fruit that grants our resurrected body the ability to manifest over our spirit when we are granted an eternal body. It is similar, but not as profound to some here on this planet, although I won't say which. It is very sacred, hidden plant, but it follows a certain sacred geometry that few on this planet actually possess knowledge of. But I haven't shared too much for the sake of sacredness. Nevertheless, Luke 12:2. And so he is speaking of a particular plant. If anyone wants to look up Luke 12:2, John, would you look that up and share that with us? That would be helpful. Okay. All right. And then he says, I've always been the weird one in the crowd. Maybe I was just born that way. And so going on, into more detail here about the near-death experience. This is my experience. Different experiencers can have vastly different experiences because literally everything that could possibly exist does exist in the spirit realms when you include all of time and eternity, as well as all of the dimensions. And that is true. I can validate. I have also seen that in my experiences. Earlier, I was saying to myself, we're definitely not living in a very high realm. Sometimes based on the activities on the planet or realm, the whole realm can actually slip into a lower dimension. That is also true. I can validate that from my own experiences. But then I changed that statement by adding, but it is still a high realm in the sense that it is one of the main realms in the battle between good and evil, if not the main one itself. I would disagree that it is a high realm because it's not. It's a mortal realm, but it is one of the realms in the battles between good and evil. So with everything going on, all the commotion around us, it's quite rare to have high-level mystical philosophers dwelling on this planet because of the commotion itself. But the ones that mastered it have really done outstandingly. I have visited actual realms where the reincarnated beings were actually incredibly psychic and could read thoughts next to perfectly. They had a glow about them compared to this planet, but also were mortal. I see a dark cloud quite often when traveling away from this planet. Yes, you would see that around the earth. He says, my guess is it's a black void that has been produced somewhat artificially so that souls are intentionally confused after they die. And it also produces a tendency towards atheism on the living. Interesting, his conclusions, that black cloud is produced by us, because we are producing it, our own thinking. Okay, let's see here. It looks like John found us what we're looking for. Luke 12:2. Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed or hidden that will not be known. Oh, and welcome MB Perry 31. For there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known. And Adriana shares as well from the New International Version. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed or hidden that will not be made known. Thanks, guys. So there we have it. So what he's saying there, he's thinking it's a black void. It's really not a black void. What he's seeing is just the dark energy that we are generating on Earth, the human beings. It's our own darkness. So, but interesting that he sensed that it produces a tendency towards atheism. I never looked at it that way, but we definitely do have that being produced on Earth. And of course, our own darkness can produce that. So interesting thought, because it could for sure, but we are producing that dark cloud. Interestingly, he says Christianity, as he has seen it, is better on other planets, as well as all other religions are better and freer. This is partly because they are not under as much political pressure. But I think that some artificial technology is actually experimenting with demons, and it is planet-wide. There are also realms of confusion where many think that sounds, things, and other senses appear to be real but are not even there. In these realms, demons lead souls there and confuse them sometimes for a matter of many years. There are many realms of confusion. That's true. And many realms of chaos, many realms of many things. But it's interesting that he has seen that the demons are using some artificial technologies to create that confusion. That doesn't surprise me, honestly. Many astral travel into these areas and are confused. There is a lot of confusion within the human race right now. So That's not surprising as well. Many pass away and are very easily tricked into entering these realms of their own free will and accord. Very true. That is also true. They are often so weighed down in spirit that they lack the spiritual will to escape. And for those of you who have read my books, you'll remember when I talked about the spiritual weight of the soul and how that weight determines whether we rise higher after death or are pulled down by the weight of our own sins. The universe is a very vast place. So these are some of the things he has experienced. It sounds like from his near-death experience, but possibly also from other subsequent experiences. A lot of near-death experiencers do have more experiences after they have the initial near-death experience. So, okay, and just a few more thoughts. And let's see. He says, I think humans are being relatively domesticated in an effort for certain groups to conquer the world. I think we can see there's some truth in this that is happening all around us. Maybe it's always been this way, but those who are remote viewers have to tell the relevant truth on what they see. I think we do have quite a bit of evidence indicating there's a lot of bizarre activity going on. He says, for the sake of time, let's just say we're essentially dealing with an evil so extreme it's like Sauron from The Lord of the Rings. That's probably a good example. I don't know that much about that storyline in that book series. And he says, your work is tangible on the mendicant preachers, and your work will be remembered for hundreds of years at least. So thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. Very kind, very kind. Let me make sure I didn't miss any questions. So I think his primary question was relating to the spiritual food. And I can definitely validate that. Yes, indeed, there is that spiritual food. So let's move on to the next question. In fact, what we could do at this point, I'd like to give you guys an opportunity to jump in if you have questions you'd like to ask. I have some more questions, but they can be saved for the next live stream if you have questions that you'd like to ask today. So please jump in because we are running out of time. I'm going to jump in with a little question here, but interrupt me. Oh, okay. Let's see which ones do I want to answer? My goodness. All right. Well, this one right here, I'm going to answer. Okay. What is the astral plane? Well, the astral plane is the realm that overlaps the earth. It is the fourth realm. So we are the third realm, third dimensional. Fourth realm is fourth dimensional. So it is kind of like a shadow realm of the third. And so it is within the mortal realms and holds within it the same kind of parameters that you see within the third dimensional. So it has those remnants of good and evil, the battles of good and evil. You're going to see a lot of wandering spirits, lost souls, tricksters. There will be demonic things and stuff in there too, but the really demonic stuff is going to be in lower spheres, lower realms. But in the astral realm, it is going to be a contaminated place, very much like Earth would be. It's when you enter into the fifth realms and above that you're entering into worlds of light, life, and above. And then there is the lower realms, which is 2 and below, where you're entering into the dark realms and the evil realms. And so, welcome, Stark Ether. Good to see you. Good to see you again. And Jesse Das, welcome. Welcome, Jesse and Stark Ether. Jesse says, have been feeling the call of the spirits and the intimacy of earth, but I also really desire to astral more. Are tree spirits guides and wise beings? Tree spirits are really more among the elemental spirits. I wouldn't consider them wise beings, but as we open up, we will feel the presence of trees, the spirit within the trees, the plants, even sometimes the spiritual presence within inanimate objects like the rocks and the ground and other aspects within the natural world. And the fairies, the other elemental spirits that work within the natural world. And so that can be definitely a good thing, because we feel that holiness, and there is a certain watchfulness that we feel with the trees, because the spirits of the trees do have that longevity. The trees that have been there for hundreds of years, they have seen so much. Sometimes when I am on a walk, I will often try to, kind of like try to feel what that tree might have seen. I used to live in Colorado, and there was a particular tree that stood outside my bedroom window, and I often would meditate upon it, because it was an old tree, probably 400, 500 years. And I would often try to communicate with that tree as to what it had seen, because literally it had seen the forming of the United States. So everything that had ever happened there. And this was, the site of some of the original Indian wars and all those things where I used to live. So there is a historical record that they contain. What have they seen? But I would not look at a tree spirit as someone to ask guidance of. It is of a different order of being. So let's see. Anna Yell would love to hear more on your meeting. And also, Adriana, I'm confused where souls originate. Can you clarify? Sure, let's go back to these. And for Jesse, you would like to astral travel more. I was mentioning to AD, who had come on and was talking about that as well. We have a lot of resources for you. Start out with how to have an out-of-body experience here on the YouTube channel, and we have tons of videos here for you. Also, go back to the website, outofbodytravel.org, download Come to Wisdom's Door and the Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And as you get into those, download the Hammer of Mysticism, and then continue. There's 104 books, so you have a lot of material to get you going in that direction. You can always email me with your questions, and if you want more guidance as you finish those up to go forward. So there's a lot of resources that you can utilize, and they're free to get you into astral traveling more. We'll go back to that meeting in just a second. Adriana, as to where you are very welcome, Jesse, very, very welcome. Adriana, as to where our souls originate, we originate from the mind of God. And, there's never going to be, a really, just answer. We came into being because God thought us into being. And so we originated in the mind of God. He created us, and we are like an emanation from God himself. And there is a great mystery in that, because then, once you understand that we're an emanation from God himself, then the question is, well, where did God come from? Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? And so it gets more and more complicated, but this is where uh, we have to also embrace the mystery. We we are nothing more, nothing less than that emanation. And souls were created as this emanation, but then we have this differentiation that occurs with us, where we are thrust into bodies. And these are all different because we are to experience all these different things in order for this cultivation and purification to occur, so that we can attain more and more and more experience, and by so doing, more and more knowledge, and then purification. And so we are all these things, and yet when it comes down to it, we really are simply that emanation. So, it's interesting, like going back as well to what Anna Yell is asking me about the Sant Mat path. We are all of that. And yet when we come back to it, we go back to the light stream. We're the emanation, which is part of the reason why the Sant Mat Masters focus on that alone. They focus on the sound current, the light stream, because, in the epitome of the mystical state, when you are literally like in the higher mystical states and the truly ecstatic experiences, that's what it comes down to. You are literally just riding a sound and light current that is projected by God. And so we are all of those things, and yet we go through these processes. If you read all these ancient sacred texts, and not just the Sant Mat ones, but you read the Buddhist texts, the Hindu texts, you'll see this a lot in Eastern philosophy, but you see it like in Kabbalism, the Jewish Kabbalism as well, Christian mysticism, ironically Sufi mysticism. We begin this outpouring, which is the emanation from God, the souls. When God outbreathes, he outbreathes millions of souls. We are but an outbreath of God. Excuse me. And so when he outbreathes and we come out as one of those outbreaths, one of those million little droplets of life, we come out and we then differentiate into all these hundreds or thousands or millions of differentiations of existence. And then one of those existences along the way suddenly realizes, I want to return to my source. And then the process becomes returning back to be inbreathed again, back into God. And then what happens as you are going through the purification process, you are going through that process where you are re-entering into that emanation. You're bringing all those differentiations, all those hundreds or thousands of lifetimes back to that single particle of out-breath that you started out as, and going back to where God can inhale you back in, so that you can return to the cosmic unity. And all of these texts talk about that we're basically, we start out at one, we end up back at one. And it's kind of, it's also like you know what the Zen masters say: when you start the path, you're chopping wood and carrying water. And then when you end the path, you're chopping wood and carrying water. It's hard for people to understand what that means until you are chopping wood and carrying water at the end of the path, and you understand that you are chopping wood and carrying water in a different way. Adriana says, "Oh, thank you for all the hearts, everybody. I love hearts." Also, I am confused if Pleiadian constellations and planets are part of heaven. Amos 5:8, he who made the Pleiades and the Orion, who turns midnight into dawn. Job 9:9, he is the maker of the beat. And Orion and the Pleiades and the constellations. That's a good question. I think when they were saying that in the Bible, they're making the reference for the reason of just saying the same God who makes all of us also made all of these. However, you know what I mean? In my experiences, the Pleiades is a planetary system that is within the heavenly spheres. They have evolved and ascended into a higher construct. So they would be within the heavenly expression. Orion, I don't know, because I haven't, as far as I know, been there. I've been to some places where I don't know where they are, that are absolutely within the heavenly constructs, beyond my comprehension. And I don't know if they're Orion because I don't know where they were. Adriana says, could we have lived in these planets and then incarnated on Earth? Absolutely, and many of us have. I was told that I had been from the Pleiadian planetary system, and I know many people who also were, and I know of people who were from others. So yes, this is, in our incarnational cycles, we just assume that they're all on Earth. They're not all on Earth. We do have a tendency in our reincarnational cycles to stick with, we'll more than likely have more lifetimes, or at least the ones we become the most aware of will probably be on Earth. Does that mean that most of them are on Earth? I can't really say for sure, because we may only become aware of the ones that are relevant to this current life. So we could have a whole bunch of lifetimes on these other planets. I know I've had lifetimes on other planets because I've been shown them. But do I have a lot more lifetimes that I haven't been shown? That's possible. But maybe they're not as relevant to this incarnation. So, going back to that whole memory thing, that would just confuse me too much, because I'm working out some karmic issues and purification issues that are more relevant to my earthly incarnations. So what it seems to be, based on my experiences, is that we will stick with things that we're most familiar with. And like, for instance, I had a lot of Native American lifetimes that I'm aware of. I also, so we'll stick with certain cultures or sometimes races, but not exclusively, because I've been a white person in many lifetimes. I have been a slave, a Black slave, but I don't have memory of a lot of lifetimes where as Black, but I do have memories of being a Black slave. I had a lot of lifetimes as a Native American. I have a very strong energy tie to the West. And so, and then I will meet people who have really strong European ties, past life wise or whatever. So different people will have, these areas where they will be more likely. I do have some ties to like Asian countries in my past lifetimes as well. So we'll see that there might be patterns. And the reason for that can be, you go in with groups of souls that you have karmic issues with and things that you're all working out together, stuff like that. Not necessarily even karmic issues. You can just go with souls that you love and you're all helping each other. That can all happen too. So let me see what I've missed here. We can absolutely live on other planets, and that can be totally a part and parcel of our incarnational cycles. Absolutely. So Adriana then says, but it's like descending, not ascending. Now, see, this is where it gets complicated and confusing, and part of part of why we will remember selectively and not be allowed to remember other things non-selectively, because we're assuming, first of all, that these lifetimes are happening always in a timeline sequence according to what we view as according to our time cycle. Our incarnational cycles don't have to happen according to our time construct. So let's say if I died tomorrow and I needed to do another lifetime, I don't have to do it in the future. I can do it in the past. I can do it in another world. I can do it in an entirely different universe. I can do it in the year 0 AD, if that's what is the best thing to do for my soul. So it would seem like you're going back and backwards or forwards, but yet you aren't. You're just assuming these things because you're not seeing that timelessness plays a role in here. And there are also other factors that absolutely come in, which include things like service. Like, so let's say you live in the Pleiadian constellation and you might be asked to come in to provide some type of service, maybe to on a grand scale or on a smaller scale, or to certain souls that you love, that you agree to come in and help, to be at their side to help them to work stuff out. So it is much more intricate, I think, than meets the eye. So it can appear to be descending, but it absolutely would not necessarily be the case. Now, we do have cases where people do descend, and that would be, there will be times when people do descend because they did go backwards in their lifetime. And so that's a whole different instance. And that's when people make decisions to go backwards. And so, yeah, they will go to a lesser evolutionary point because that's what they have been doing. And so does that make sense? Let's see. Adriana says, is the transcendental book something we need to know about for our spiritual growth? Probably not. I do not, I will be researching to see. Oftentimes when I'm shown a book like that, it's something I'm supposed to actually write. So I will keep you posted if it's something I'm going to write. Thank you. I am really trying to understand who I am, why I am here, and what my soul's purpose is. Thank you for expanding my mind. You are very welcome. Thank you, Adriana. I love your participation. Adriana says linear. Wow, that's amazing. Not linear. Yes, it's not always linear. Wow, thank you. You're very welcome. So I hope that was helpful. And so thank you all for joining me today. It's been great having everyone. I appreciate it so much. And again, just a reminder, make sure you subscribe. That helps keep us searchable on YouTube and across the network, the internet. And that helps people to find us in our work so they can also have the opportunity to expand. And we appreciate that. That's very helpful. And for those of you who are members, thank you so much. It helps to keep our resources free, and to everyone in the world, anywhere. And that is priceless, honestly, because that's how we do what we do. And you can check out the membership options by clicking on the join button up in your upper right hand corner of the screen. Membership helps keep us going. So I thank you so much for considering that if it's an option for you. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see y'all next time. Hello, Jakester. Hi there. And everyone else, thank you so much. And we will see you next time.